Hi, guys. This is just a quick note. The sound in this episode is not the greatest. And I just wanted to come on and let you know that I'm very sorry about it. We endeavor to produce high quality products for you, high quality episodes for you. Unfortunately, the recording on this one was just not great. But listen, the content is so good. Did not want you to miss out on this, so we decided to just release it anyway. And I hope you will be able to bear with us and just know that we are making steps to improve the sound quality in the next episodes. So thank you. Hello, you are listening to Africana Woman with Chulu. The Africana Woman is a live show that highlights our stories in our own words. We believe that to attract the lives that we truly desire, we must smash the culture of silence around the things that hold us back or keep us stuck. In our tribe, rest assured, you are not alone. The Africana Woman is for you, by you, and about you, no matter where you are in the world. So the Africana Woman highlighted this week is Lumba Kalumba from Zambia. I love Lumba. Each time I talk to her, I am just fascinated about the wealth of her knowledge and experiences. I cannot wait for you to get to know her. And this is only one side of her. Oh my gosh. So, a little bit about Lumba. She has a degree in development studies and economics from UNZA, a diploma in human resource management and training. She also has a certificate in stress management and management of political parties. She has worked mainly in the NGO world for UNICEF, Danish Volunteer Service, in addition to consulting with Irish Aid, WHO, USAID, Cara Counseling, and St. Bonaventure University. Her interest in Zambian politics started in 1980, but she only became active in 1990, where she campaigned under MMD in Lusaka, Kafue, Chibombo, in Chilenge, Mwansabombwe, and Chienge constituencies. She was elected in National Executive Committee as the first female chairman for health in February 2011, where she beat 3 male contenders. She did leave MMD in November in 2011, and she was also asked to help to advise and campaign under UPND in 2016, which she declined. And she finally quit active politics in 2016. Listen, she has learned a lot of lessons and she has experienced different challenges along the way, and these have been based on her principles, her gender, and ethnicity. But you know what? I need you to hear her story in her own words. So, today's topic, as you might have guessed, is African women in politics and culture. Let's get started. So let's get started. I think let's start with an easy question. Is Zambia ready for a female president? I'm just joking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we are.
Okay.
And why do I say that?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of ethnic groups in Zambia are matrilineal. And what does that mean? The women are in the forefront. They make the decisions. Unfortunately, with colonialism, we became a patriarchal society. And that has just turned things upside down. But if you look at our traditions, our culture, what the women say and do is so important. in all the ethnic groups that we have in Zambia, I think we only have 2 or 3 that are patrilineal. So I think it's long overdue from that sense, from the cultural sense and traditional sense. In different times now, and we've seen in other countries, women are taking the forefront. If you look at the information that's coming out now, where there are female-headed leaders in the world, Australia, is it New Zealand, and so on.
Germany.
You have Angela Merkel. Yeah, wonderfully. And even with the fight for Corona, you find that where the women are the leaders, they are doing way better than the men. So it's high time men gave us, they moved over and gave us a chance. And when I say that, I put a qualifier. It's not all women that will be fantastic leaders. We really have to look for the best. And it's the same just. You can't say all men are fantastic leaders. We will have good ones and bad ones. But we need to even the playing field to make sure that more women have an opportunity, that it's easier. Remove the barriers that are there, the violence, the verbal violence, the physical violence, that discourages a lot of women standing in politics.
So take us back to why you have an interest in politics. What made you fascinated with it? What made you jump in and be part of it?
Okay, like I said, like you said in your introduction, in 1980, I was just in my Form 4, which is equivalent of grade 11, and I had traveled to visit my grandmother. And at that time, we had President Kaunda in office. It was a one-party state. And 2 things happened to me. The first thing was, as I traveled on the bus to Lukulu, which is in Western Province, we were forced to buy political party cards. I was underage. I wasn't even eligible to vote. But in order for me to get a ticket to come back to Lusaka, I was told, if you don't have a party card, you won't get on the bus. And that was the only bus available coming back to Lusaka. And you're talking about 600 kilometers or something. So that, to me, obviously felt like a no-no. The second thing that happened to me in 1980, I was very privileged to go to a fairly good school called the Dominican Convent, Lusaka. And a lot of my friends' fathers, unfortunately, were implicated in the coup of 1980, and they were locked up. I don't know whether they were guilty or not, but what the government did to us was to round up all the Form 4 students to go to State House on a particular day, and I was one of them. And we went to State House for the first time. We were just excited to see Kaunda, to be in his beautiful state yard, and see the lawns. I remember walking up to him and saying, for the lack of anything better to say, I just said, oh, what a wonderful garden you have. And, we were happy to see friends from Kablonga boys, Kablonga girls, Kamwala. And it was just like, oh, no class, we're having a free day. And they used transport to take us there. The following day, the headline was a screaming deadline saying, all the students in Lusaka say the coup plotters should be arrested and killed.
Wow.
Now, I was in that. Some so-called coup plotters, I knew them. I knew their daughters were classmates. They were friends. I knew their parents. And I was like, when did we say this? Because we were just having a good time. And that was the time I realized that governments can lie, adults can lie, politicians can lie. And I think that's when, my rebellious nature came up and said, I'm not going to stand for this. I grew up in a family where the truth was so important. My parents were not political, but they always told us to stand on the truth for ourselves and for others. And I really felt offended to be lumped with a group of people in the media saying our friends' fathers should be locked up. It was nonsense. So from that, and then also the experience of being forced to buy a unique party card before I even had a voter card just made me anti-UNIP from that time. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to do anything because I was still finishing school. I went to university. We were very anti-government at university, complaining about school fees and allowances and things like that. But it wasn't until 1990 when the wind of change started and multi-party democracy began in Zambia that I started attending. I remember the first rally, I was at Pope Square, which is now the Cathedral of Child Jesus. We were so many diverse people there, sitting down on the ground, total strangers, and we just felt a sense of unity. There was no fear of who you were seated next to. And strangely enough, my current husband was in part of the group of people that were working towards multi-party democracy. So that, increased my interest even more. So really, that's how my political interest started.
That is so fascinating. That's so fascinating. My grandfather was one of the coup plotters, and he recently passed.
Really?
Yeah. GY Godfrey.
What is his name?
Goodwin Yoramumba.
Okay, yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there was so many people. There was Musakanyas, there were Chisangas, there were all those people. And these are the people who, like I said, their children went to the same school that I did. And I was like, what's going on? These are people's homes we had visited. Yeah. Some of these people were with my parents. So I couldn't understand what it was. We also had the stories about Mushala. You remember the stories of Mushala, children and stuff like that. They created such demonic stories about him, being province. I didn't know him personally, but much later I got to know his son, and quite good friends with him and his wife. And he told me his side of the story. Really? And it just helped me understand that politicians do lie. And they do create stories in order to keep themselves in power. So, I really wanted to fight against that. And I said, why should it be like this? Why can't we bring in a new breed of people who come and speak the truth and do what is right? Politics should be about service. It shouldn't be about you getting the income and sitting there and enjoying yourself at the expense of everyone else. Yeah. And the women, we had Mama Kankasas and so on, the firebrands, we had Machika Monica and so on. And yes, they were given positions, but I feel many more women should have been given an opportunity. And right now, I think we are grossly underrepresented. At least give us 50%, for goodness sake. I know, 50% of the population. Women are multitaskers. One woman can do the work of more than 5 men. You're a house director. You are the food director. You look after your husband. You look after your children. You do your day-to-day job. You look after the sick. There's so many things that we can do and juggle, and we're still standing. And there's so many intelligent women out there who would love to serve, but they're afraid to get into politics because of the culture of insults, the culture of violence, on the idea that positions should be kept for men. Who said so? Yeah.
I think there's also a stereotype that goes around that, especially for the women that are in higher ranking positions, that you sort of have to sleep your way to the top, I think that's
Exactly. We had the stories about the Mama Regionals, that for you to become Mama Regional in UNIP, you must have slept with somebody to get to that position. And even female members of parliament, for them to get into parliament or to even get a ministerial position, there are rumors, true or untrue, that, you have to sleep with, the bosses in order to get the position. And that should never, ever be the case. They should pick us on merit. The same way they pick men, let them pick us on merit and give us a chance. Yeah. When I stood for a position in the National Executive Committee of MMD, I stood against 3 men.
okay.
I was privy to the list of people who had handed in their applications, because my husband at the time was bowing out of political life.
Okay.
And he showed me the list. And I said, but these guys that you've put on the list to stand in these positions, I can stand against these people. What's so special about them? I can't do it. And I threw in my application. A lot of people were surprised. They didn't expect me to do it. I didn't have the resources they had. Many of them had been MPs for a long time, or they were well-resourced, better resourced than I was. I went in with a very minimum budget, but I managed to win, and I'm so proud to win. And I had the support of the people of Luapula province. And I love the people of Luapula because I don't come from there.
Yeah.
But they said, we're treating you as if you are a person from Luapula by virtue of being married to somebody from Luapula. It's not common that happens. Usually they would say, go and stand in your home area. If you're from Western Province, go and stand in Western Province. But I stood on what they called at the time the Luapula ticket. And it was a group of Luapula strong men and women who put me up. There were 3 of us who were standing for positions, myself, late Kalombo Mwansa, and Mr. Lumba Kalumba. I think he's still an MP for one of the constituencies now. And we called ourselves the Mpundus, which is like the triplets. And we campaigned together as a team, and we all went through, and we all got positions on the executive committee representing Luapula. I was so proud, and I'm still proud today about that, because 1, they didn't look at me as a woman. They didn't look at me as a foreigner, somebody coming from another place. My Bemba is not fantastic, but they said, we feel you have the qualities that can help push our province forward. It's unfortunate I didn't stay in politics long enough, but I had a serious conflict of interest that I could not continue, because I found myself surrounded with people who had completely different ideas from what I had. And I was like one person in a bowl of strangers. And so we ended up parting ways. Not too nicely, but I gave my best during the time that I was there.
Mm-hmm. So, what advice would you give to young people, young women that are looking at the political parties that are existent in their countries, but then they don't necessarily reflect their ideas, just the way you've described, So they're looking at, their manifestos and they're thinking, well, the options are not the greatest. What would you recommend?
Okay. Bit of a difficult question. For me, I have certain strong principles that I will not go against. I will not go against violence. I mean, I'll not stand up for violence, should I say. I will not stand up for lies. I call a spade a spade. And anybody standing in political office really should have principles and values that they stand for. I was not always very vocal, but when I was asked, I spoke my mind without fear or favor. And I feel that anybody being in politics should be able to do that. It's important, however, in the current politics that we have, that you need to have people to support you, because you can find yourself being the lone voice, even though you're speaking the correct language and doing the right things. If you don't have a group of people behind you, you have a group of clickers, it won't work for you. I'll give you a very simple example. Towards the end of my being in MMD, this is the time when Pierre Banda had lost election, and before the elections, he had made a clique of an inner circle of people who were making decisions for all of us. We're about 60 of us on the executive committee, but he had hand-selected people who I would say he was more comfortable with. And they were, by and large, yes, sir, even though maybe they didn't agree with what he was saying or doing. There were some women there and there were some men there. And decisions were made which messed up the whole campaign for MMD. For Luapula province, talk about what should have happened in the selection of candidates for who should stand. We were supposed to sit as a whole executive committee, look at the list of applications and say, this person we feel can win. That person can win. This one is not so popular. We didn't have that opportunity. They were handpicked, this clique group, based on loyalty, and bootlicking. And as a result, only one person made it through. The rest went to the opposition at that time. And when we had what we call the post-mortem, we were told, these things happen, let's just forget about it, let's not go back and, ask questions as to why we lost and this and that. And I refused to do that. And this is one of the reasons why I got into trouble, because I spoke up and I said, when we were telling you that you've chosen the wrong people, did you listen? And the people told you had certain ideas and desires and needs to be met. Did you, the people, listen? You didn't. And how did they show you their action came through voting for the opposition? And I said, we could have won seats in Luapula province if only they had listened. They selected people that the common voters did not want. But they didn't listen. And I said that very openly. And from that day, I noticed the president of the party, was really upset with me. And the machinations now came. How can we get rid of this woman? You know, she's causing problems. She's a dissident. She's not on our side. She's not with us. People like Dora Sidia, Namugala didn't like what I was saying. And you would expect that women would support fellow women. It doesn't happen like that in politics. So, unfortunately, men support each other. Men can quarrel and fight today in politics. Tomorrow they'll be drinking a beer together and they'll support each other. For the women in politics, it's, you know, every woman for herself, which is really, really sad because so few anyway. And if you cannot support the few women that are there, how do you expect other women to come in? So, see the female politicians fighting for more female representation. Not just the men, but we, the women ourselves, we need to fight and support each other. It has to start with that. Why should the men be the ones to support us if we don't support each other?
Okay, that's interesting. Hey sis, thank you for listening to Africana Woman with Chulu. This show is only possible because of your participation. These are your stories in your own words. There are actually two ways that you can be featured in the Africana Woman Network. You can either be a guest blogger on the Africana Woman blog or a guest speaker on the Africana Woman podcast. If any of these interest you, please contact me on africanawoman@gmail.com to learn more about the procedures to be approved. Now, back to the show. So, what type of experiences did you have in your political life that were affected directly by culture? So, whether it was a positive experience or a negative experience, what could you give us some examples of how culture influenced your experience?
You know, culture is a way of life, and it's a political culture that was created where perhaps you're expected to be tough, you're expected to be violent verbally and physically. You're not supposed to question things, which I felt was not correct. And whenever I spoke out against that, I was usually carpeted. There was one time we had an executive committee meeting. Someone raised a point about a particular individual who wanted to stand in Kienge constituency. And a question came through to say, is this the correct person to stand? And somebody else comes up and says, oh no, we hear that this person is not the correct person. The correct person is X. And I knew that the person that they had mentioned was not popular and that if they picked that person, we would lose. And I wanted to stand up and say that in the meeting, because if I have the information, I should share it. We're supposed to be equal in the the executive committee. Immediately, I raised my hand to say, may I speak? A female member of parliament looks at me and tells me, shut up.
Out loud.
I looked at her. I looked at her and I ignored her. And I spoke to my provincial chairman and I asked him, Mr. Chairman, I want to say something. And you know what I want to say. I know something about Chienge because that's my area. I know more about area than many people in this room. Can I say something about who should stand in Chienge? And the chairman said to me, don't say anything. And I had to keep quiet and say, Mr. Chairman, I respect you. You're my chairman. For your sake, I won't say anything. Okay? And that moment passed. But I was proven right because when the election came, person X, who they selected, lost miserably. And like I said, when I mentioned it in the post-mortem meeting, I brought it up and I said, when I wanted to say, don't put this person, don't field this particular candidate, I was told by someone in this room, I didn't mention the name, I was very polite. Someone in this room told me to shut up. And the person looked down in shame. She was afraid that I might mention who she is. I didn't do so. So there was just silence. I mean, you could hear a pin drop, but I made my point. Unfortunately, not in my favor, but I made my point. And when I've said what I want to say, that's it. I stand even today by my words. So that kind of bootlicking, refusing to acknowledge what is good for the party or the right decision that's being made just because so and so says don't do this or don't do that. That's not the way we should do our politics. We are in there to serve and to make sure we make the best choices for the people so that we can move forward. There's no party that wants to come out of power. Whichever party is ruling, we all want to stay in power. But it shouldn't be at the expense of the people. Unfortunately, the culture of politics we have, it's all about me, me, me. What am I getting out of it? Okay? And the people who vote for you very often don't get their views heard or respected, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah. I think one of the things that really disturbs me.
You need to have crocodile skin. You need to have crocodile skin to be in politics in Africa, in Zambia. Don't go in with cuffs. It's not easy. And you can see it. I mean, you have so-called strong women, and all of a sudden they come out. If you sit down and ask Sylvia Maseva why she come out of politics, she'll have a story to tell you, right or wrong. She'll have a story. And I think a lot of women do have those stories. And I wish as women we would support each other and try to work together to say, come on, we are mothers. We have that motherly instinct. But when we go into politics, we forget all that. Some of us are coming from religious backgrounds, different backgrounds. But when we enter into the political arena, we become political animals and we change. And it's all for me and myself. And that's really not what politics should be about. The wind of change in 1990 was so beautiful. It was an excellent moment. I miss it. Now it's politics of insults,
defection.
I forgot to mention something. When I was in MMD, Honorable Nawakwi, who is president of an opposition party, president of FDP, made a statement that didn't go down with the ruling party at the time.
Okay.
And some very junior cadres came out and said, we will rate you for saying whatever it is that you said. And it was on the, you can Google it. It was on the news. It was in the media. I, as an executive member of MMD, stood up and I said, that is wrong. You make agree with someone's opinion, but to voice verbal abuse and threats against a woman is unacceptable. And I don't care where she comes from. I will not support. And a couple of people were upset with me for standing with her. I stood by her because she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a grandmother. And those young people who were making those comments came from the womb of a woman. Imagine that own sister, they say, somebody says, I'm going to rape you because I disagree with your views. I'm going to rape you because, I don't like what you said about my president. It's wrong. What is wrong is wrong. So things like that, I don't mince my words. I never have, I never will. I don't believe in violence, whether it's verbal or physical. And these are the things, again, like I said, that discourage women. Because who wants to go in and be insulted? Even I was told at some point, don't come to the convention, we'll beat you up,
What?
And nobody stood up for me. My national secretary of the party for me, males did not stand up for me. Females did not stand up for me. I was on my own. But I was being told, if you go to the convention, we will beat you up. If people can't see that culture of verbal abuse and violence is wrong, then how can you sit on the same table with such people?
Okay. What do you think is the root of the political culture that is prevalent today? Where did it come from? Why? Where did it come from? Like, it's spreading so fast, and it's spreading like wildfire. But what is the root? Where did this come from?
Okay, our political behavior, we tend to mimic our leaders. If you remember in the time of Kaunda, no disrespect to Papa Kaunda. Kaunda used to like saying stupid idiots to people who were against him. Okay? And it became a laughing matter, and some people would even use that against people who they thought were against UNIP. You are a stupid idiot. Okay? Come in Chiluba, Frederick Chiluba. He is one person whom, and correct me if I'm wrong, I never heard him insult anybody. He may not have agreed with other people's opinions, but he never insulted people. Okay? Then you have the late Manawasa who came in and he started saying, I hate Bembas. All Bembas are thieves. Okay? Now, if you're a politician and you're a Bemba and you're being called a thief, whether you're a thief or not, the other junior members will say, oh, these thieves, they have stolen money, there's this. It becomes the whole party machinery takes up that language because that's what the leader has said. It's a political culture, political behavior, which is being encouraged. The idea of insulting heads of state came in with the social media and the newspapers that came in. We had the Post newspaper, where a president would be insulted left, right, and center, just because they didn't agree with whatever it was he was doing. Any uneducated person can insult. It's not hard to insult. But it takes somebody with a brain to be able to look at something and say, this particular idea is not correct for these reasons. You don't have to use bad language to make your point. And so, unfortunately, we still seem to be flowing in that culture of insults, verbal abuse, violence. Okay, we need to change that. We were known as a very peaceful country in the 70s, 80s, and 60s. How many people from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia can tell you stories about how they were welcomed into Zambia and felt comfortable? We went to school with these people. We didn't care where they came from. I had so many people in my class, I didn't even know they were foreigners until their countries became independent. And then they started changing their names. Oh, I'm going. Where are you going? I'm going to Zimbabwe. I'm going to South Africa. I'm going to Namibia. Oh, but why? That's where I come from. Oh, but I always thought you were Zambian. Tribe was not an issue. Where a country where you came from was not an issue. And the peace that we had, we are slowly eroding that away. And that's really, really sad. It is sad because we are lucky we never went to war, physical war, to get our independence. If we don't have the tide now, we will end up in some kind of war. Now it's fanaticism. If you are not with me, then you're against me. No. Every single human being has an opinion. I like to say we all have noses, just like we have opinions. My nose may be big, small, black, whatever, ugly, but it's mine. And I respect your opinion. Let's agree, disagree. And if you want to change my opinion, use language, communicate, not with violence, not with threats. That I don't agree with at all.
So I don't know if it's. I think I've only really seen this. I guess a wave of cadres. Where did this start from? Like here in Zambia, Kada is always. Oh, the cadres are doing this. The cadres are doing this, but I don't really think I hear about cadres taking over in other countries.
Again, it has to do with the ruling parties and the leadership of opposition parties.
Okay,
because they are the ones
how would you define
that set the tone.
How would you define
If you look at UNIP, we had what we called Mwangwazi.
Okay.
Every president then comes in, they have different names. Mwangwazis, okay? In UNIP time, we had spies. You could have a housemaid, gardener, people of low level who would be spying on others, and people would lose jobs. Okay? And they were given a lot of credence by UNIP. MMD came in with their own group. PF came in, they also started their own group. Even the uniform they are wearing, you see now they're even wearing what looks like some kind of military uniform. Okay? When they're in the buses, whether it's UPND versus PF. And the majority of these are men. It's not the women, it's the men. Now, in such a situation where people are using their physical power to show that we are ruling or we want to take over, which woman would want to jump into that? I am not a strong person. Even taught me karate today. I'm not a physically violent person. And I don't want to be involved in that kind of thing. And I think most women don't want that. But this is what frightens women from getting involved in politics. It's not necessary. In South Africa, it wasn't men alone. When you had Mkonto, Wesizwe, there were men and women who were fighting for the freedom of South Africa. In Zimbabwe, you had men and women fighting, okay? The majority may have been men or not men and so on, but they were not pushed on the outskirts. Here, I feel the women are really disenfranchised in that sense. And you can see in Parliament, if you look at the Parliament of South Africa, they have this 30% automatic representation has to be women.
Oh.
There are a lot of powerful women. Look at Winnie Mandela's and so many people with his Dr. Dlamini Zuma and so on. They've come up. They are not threatened the way we feel threatened here in Zambia. And we need to claim our right as Zambian women to say, hey, you guys, enough is enough. We have something to offer. And the men know we do have something to offer. But they leave us out. And we as women need to be united. We've got the women's lobby that has been trying for a long time to say, wherever there's a woman, let's support her. But it has to go beyond that. It's not just any woman. It's a woman with vision, with intelligence, with integrity. Because you might pick a woman who is not a good woman, then you're not getting anywhere. And unfortunately, we are judged more harshly by our fellow women than even by the men. And when a woman falls down, the men say, oh, look at that. We really need as women to support each other, use positive reinforcement, use good language, support each other, and try to increase the number of intelligent women who can speak out for the masses. We have a lot. I'm so happy now we are seeing, even in the business community, more ladies are taking up big positions, managing directors of banks and so on. You know, Zanaco, for the first time in 60 what year or 50 something years, finally has a female MD coming in. This is what we need. We have a vice president. Hey, we need a president, a female president as well. We need more ministers to come in. We need more political advisors coming in. Let's even out the game. And there's a pool of intellectuals that are available to do this work, if only they can be considered. And when we are in positions of power, let's pull out. Let's pull our system.
I think, in as much as we want to say that women, we should support each other, I also think men also play such an important role in, supporting women, in protecting women. Like the stories you've told are absolutely unacceptable, that, in the presence of so many people, that not even one person can stand up and say that is wrong. And I think just as human beings in general, we need to be able to support each other and do the right thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a joint effort. It is definitely a joint effort. Women support each other and men should support. Just the same way we support the men, let them also start supporting us and let them give us the respect. People are coming from homes. They were brought up by their mothers, for goodness sake. Which man disrespects his mother? If you have respect for your mother, have respect for every other woman on the planet. Even from a biblical perspective, look at how Jesus gave respect to women. He respected his mom. He respected Mary Magdalene, who became literally one of the disciples, although she's not counted as one of the 10 because of the culture of the time. But she has a role that she played. And that was a sign to show that men and women can work side by side together and do something for the good of the whole country.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we have come to the end of the hour. So many interesting stories. I'm always very intrigued and interested with the stories you have to tell. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation and tell us your experiences. It has been so interesting, so enlightening. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chulu. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I could talk for hours and hours.
That was an interesting conversation with Lumba about politics in Africa. Well, the case study was Zambia. To be honest, I was horrified. How can African women really feel safe in the political space when we are not supported by both men or women? We have to do better, guys. Okay, I'm supposed to be journalistic and, not have any opinions, but come on now. This is about our political leaders. Okay, here are my 3 takeaways. Number 1, the political climate is a reflection of the leader. Number 2, politicians should embrace eloquence and persuasive speech. Number 3, women and men need to work together to make politics a safe environment for women to thrive in. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pandora, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Click that subscribe button. You will be helping us so much if you first subscribed, gave us a 5-star rating, and then reviewed the podcast. We love to hear what you thought about this episode. I personally love talking with you guys, so please come on over to my social media at Chulu by Design. Or you can join the Africana Woman Tribe. This is a Facebook group and we can dive deeper into this topic. So see you next week for the next episode. Please remember, my hope is that you love yourself, flaws and all, and attract the life that you desire. This has been a production of Ulendo Creative Media. You can find out more about their services on www.ulendocreative.com.